I'm currently writing an essay about the Japanese experience in the 1980s, comparing it to now. The land standard. I'm calling the essay the compute standard. And collateral-based lending, just like the GFC, right? Like as collateral, and I traded crypto for a while, and that's where I really saw it because there's no government intervention there, so that was just pure. As collateral values rise, lending capacity increases, prices rise, excitement rises until you get a crescendo. And that's why after Bitcoin broke last October, I was telling one of my buddies who actually runs a crypto fund, I was like, this is exactly what happened in 22. Once that Luna thing cracked, there was a collateral hole and it couldn't be met. And it was just a slow bleed because the dynamics had changed. And so I think the Japan experience never really got fully flushed out. I mean, sort of like the GFC. And I know you've done a lot of work talking about how we undergrew because we just didn't take our medicine on that. But they did some internal consolidation transformation, but they were the original zombie bank, zombie company guys, right? And they were keeping that cancer in the system. Then the state government blows out. Then they take that bill and they send it to the world in the form of the carry trade by having just zero money to borrow yen. And for everyone who doesn't understand, sophisticated financial players, they don't look at just the cost of the local market. They'll go out to the international market and they'll fund in whatever the cheapest cross-currency basis is. And for a long time, it's been yen, which is why, often in risk-offs, yen is up, But so I think that we're at a point now where the yen bond market is kind of telling you what's going on. Plus, we have energy prices because remember, they import all their oil and natural gas via LNG. So they're negative 100 basis points real on the policy of the call rate. And they're feeling the pressure, and you're starting to see basically them talk about things, and it's pretty sure that everyone knows the MLF interventions don't work, right? And so they work for a couple days, or they work for a week or something. It's a nice way to spend $40 billion. I wish I could get them to just send me $1 billion of that to my personal account. Anyway, that's aside. So I think it's going to come from Japan. I think Japan is like the yen. Our friend Hugh. I'm a bear on the yen for a long time, just like Hugh, and I think the yen was clearly their mechanism to let go. Everyone funds in yen to buy anything. And I would ask, not ask, but I would encourage the viewers, look at the yen since 2011 and then line it up with a separate axis chart versus the NASDAQ, versus the S&P, versus anything, right? And I'm telling you that this is a story that people kind of understand. They're like, oh, the yen carry trade. They don't realize Japan is the Saudi Arabias of international global saving. And so if they're forced, the BOJ, to act because of the weak yen, they take it up. They're also huge players in the credit market. Those guys are big funders of the private credit space. This thing's starting in Japan, basically, is what my view is. And so
no, go ahead, Ben, keep going.
No, and then so then you think about it as okay, well, if the AI ROA thing's coming into play and Japan's there, you just have these two dynamic factors at one time, and then the bond market, unfortunately for people, is not playing game, or is not being accommodative. And now we got, it's so predictable, and we should talk about the Fed, but I did a show on my podcast last time, we call it the death shot. Basically, at the end of cycles, the Fed always does this last little hike. You know what I mean? In June of 2000, Greenspan did just one last little 50 bipper.
You gotta get a 50 in there. And then 6 months later, it's 50 basis points at a time downward.
I mean, they did it in 29. They did, Volcker, when he came in 79, it was 10 and a quarter. He had it at 11 within 2 months, and then it took it to 19. They did this the truth is in 08, again, from reading all the long transcripts, one of their options was to raise 25 basis points in August of 08 meeting. When you look back on it, it's absolutely absurd, right? But they were seriously consider raising rates in August of 2008. So this is just what these guys do.
They were very close, June to August. I mean, Ben Bernanke gave a speech in early June, actually 2 back-to-back speeches where he said, we're likely to raise rates. And of course, the ECB actually did in July. So yeah, they always behind the curve. They're always the ones who come in at the end. It's almost like, ringing a bell at the top. They say nobody does it, but the Fed comes closest to doing so.
They're good at it. Either you could argue that they're idiots, or that you're like, we've seen enough of this. We're ending this thing right here. Either way.
I always argue that they're incompetent idiots. There's no knowledge and competence there. But you said something that, Japan. Let's go back to Japan for a second here, because I think we got a glimpse of what you're exactly talking about. First, in the summer of 2024, July and early August of 2024, the Japan carry trade blow up that everybody called the carry trade blow up. And what ended up happening? Same story. The Japanese carry traders got disturbed for a couple of reasons, and that immediately spilled over almost everywhere. You had financial market disruptions. You had the Nikkei that was down the most since 1987. You had the U.S. stock exchanges going down. People going, what the hell's going on? And then it happened again, late 2024, early 2025. It was kind of covered up by the tariff uncertainty and the panic that was going on with that. But the carry traders were heavily involved in that instance as well. So I think the idea that Japan is the volatility shock waiting to happen that maybe unleashes the downside, that's probably a pretty good analogy, or a pretty good way to put it. And so that means...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, ultimately it's about leverage, right? Like, I'm a big believer of carry as the primary model you should think about and driver of the system.
Well,
right?
It's leverage on the one side and collateral on the other. Those are the two most important things. And when the one gets out of whack with the other, whether collateral value is shrinking, you got too much leverage, and the leverage has got it. It's always those two factors.
Right, because they move up together and then they move down together. So it's a pro-cyclical, and then it's a vicious cycle. And it's just use an agent-based model where you can model it easily. It's not like hard to understand. But I come back to like this idea of carry, meaning like, okay, so go back to July 24. It's a good point. Like basically implied correlation, the S&P was like, single handle, just like it is now. And so the dispersion trade, a big form of leverage they're doing. You had the peso yen, like just, the hot Mexico was the hottest place to be, like anything. Like, so you borrow cheap, buy stuff, and just keep doing it. And then the thing about carry or any asset class, as it works, you start to invite more capital to come in. And like I talked about this in the last essay about the British Railways, this guy, George Hudson, they called the Railway King. He was putting these fat dividend yields out. And that's how he attracted the capital to fund the railroads. But the problem was he didn't actually have the capital from cash flow from the railroads to pay it back. But in this point, the Japanese central bank has shown unlimited ability to just like give you more money. And so the question will be who's like had enough? And usually, Jeff, oil is the thing that like central bankers have no control over. And let's just remember, the GFC might not have happened like it did if oil didn't go to 147 in July. Like a lot of stuff that sucks a lot of liquidity out of the financial system. And remember, primary money is human time, human capital, and energy, right? Either processed raw, and dollars are a claim on that energy because we don't really care about dollars, right? Like what did I like in 2,000, 5,000 years ago, what the hell are you going to do with a dollar? So it's like what you care about is taking your wife out to dinner, sending your kids to college, flying to St. Bart's, whatever. And so when you get it out of line, sometimes there's a convergence between the claims on money and true money. And so maybe it could be oil here too, like that's maybe why Trump really can't press this, because like oil at 200 is a real problem.